So every once in a while there is news that comes out that confirms the esoteric science and information that I've been showing you now for about 4 or 5 years. When I first started this journey, I had noticed something very special. And as time has gone on and I've researched all of these, all the esoteric science and so forth, I have confirmed what I have seen over and over again for you. Since the subject is so vast, I can't talk about all of it here, but I want to do is show you some new news and tie that back to some of the things that I've already shown you. So this work is comprehensive. Just keep that in mind. And so if there's something you don't understand, you will find it in my video selection, or all of my videos that I've uploaded, you will find it. So there's this recent news that came out. It says Moundville, Alabama's ancient Indian mounds led souls to the stars. And this was dated April 3rd. I was going to do it a little bit sooner, but I just didn't have the motivation to do it. So if you're also familiar with the work of Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and people like that, you also know that there was also a path of souls, or that souls went to the stars, and they went to the stars in Orion. Okay, but what these guys didn't get for the longest time is that if you look at it Kabbalistically, they were not interested in a star per se. They were interested in the nebula, because inside the nebula contains the Kabbalistic idea or archetype of what they were talking about, which is the eye of Kether. And the eye of Kether, if you're familiar with the Tree of Life, Kether is located at the very top. Now, we will come back to this idea of understanding this, but I want to show you the diagram. Because when they say as above, so below, there's a lot more to it than just what a lot of people think. There is the psychological aspect of it. There's also the physical aspect of it. And there's this universal association and analogy between what is above and what we look at in the stars, and this is Kabbalistic, to what we look at when we look at man himself. Kabbalah is ancient. It goes all the way back into it's as old as ancient Hinduism, as ancient Egypt, all these things, because all over the world what we see in their symbolism is Kabbalistic. Kether, which represents this area right here at the very top of this Tree of Life, this is the first manifestation that we see in the universe. Now you have to realize that this is a fractal type of thing to understand. So anytime we look at any system in the universe, Kether is the beginning. Whether it is a nebula, whether it is a galaxy, whether it's a cluster of galaxies, no matter how you look at it, it is the starting point. Now, when you take a look at the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, you have the 7 planets. You have of course, you have Earth, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. This is what they called the fixed stars. And then right here, which is Kether, represents the very top or peak point before you move into the nothingness beyond that. And when you take a look at the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, what you really have is you have 4 trees of life stacked on top of each other. This first Tree of Life, which is the world of Asiya, is the world of the physical universe that we live in. And there's an analogy that goes with that. But looking at it, it gives us more information about what we are about as well. If you notice, this guy is turned in right profile, but you can see the left side of his brain. Well, these mound builders, and I'll go into this in just a second, believe that the souls went up to the nebula. Now, if they believed that, and we also have the story with ancient Egypt believing that, then we now know that ancient Egyptians, because we see the similarities in cultures across the world, that what they were really doing is they were moving to the nebula, to that point, which is called the eye. It's called the eye of Kether. So let's read just a little bit of this. on what they have to say. On the evening of the winter solstice, the soul journeyed to the west, where it came to a body of water. It waited then until early morning, when Orion's Nebula was about to descend below the horizon. Orion's Nebula is the fuzzy spot below the three belt of stars. The ancient mound builders saw the constellation of Orion as a hand, which we will go into here in just a second. Just before Orion Nebula descended below the horizon, the soul made a leap toward the nebula. Now, this is from Newswire. Okay? It made a leap toward the nebula. So, now, let's take a look at this real quick, because this is the video that they show us below, and it has people like Andrew Collins and stuff like that in it, which he's obsessed with Cygnus. However, I do not give him the credit, nor does Robert Bivall, as really understanding what's going on here, because you have to have a Kabbalistic view. In both ancient Egypt and the mound builders that we see in Alabama, what we see is that people are working towards that nebula. When you look all the way across cultures, you take a look at the Mayans and everything, the place of creation, that starting point is the Orion Nebula. This is what all the cultures saw. Now, here's the hand part.
At the wrist, his hand was placed in the sky as a warning to others. The severed wrist of the hand is formed by the three belt stars of the constellation of Orion. The thumb and fingers of the hand are outlined by various stars in the constellation, and the ogee is actually Orion's Nebula.
Now you see that eye right there? The ogee, which is what he is referring to, is actually the eye. That is the eye of Kether, and it is the eye of the Orion Nebula. And if we take a look at things like what we see in ancient Egypt, the eye and the triangle, there is a correlation between the eye and the hand, corresponding to Orion, and the eye and the triangle, corresponding to Orion. This is the area. The eye represents, another way of looking at it would be to say it represents the eye of the storm. For example, if we take a look at what was shown us on space.com, we can see that the Orion Nebula, what we have is a slinky here. They call it the cosmic slinky, but it's actually a storm. It is a vortex of some sort. Now, this same vortex I discovered before NASA even decided that it was even in existence, and I came out with this in 2012, November 14th, showing that NASA confirmed my Orion Nebula black hole discovery, because I had said a year before that there was a vortex in the very center of the Orion Nebula. This ogee that they are talking about right here is this portal, the portal that exists inside the Orion Nebula, and it is the eye that they are referring to. It is the eye in the center of the hand, and it is the eye inside the triangle. Well, one of the things that I did a long time ago was, gotta have this hand here, is I created this, and if you take a look at the date of it, it is September 5th, 2013, because I realized that the eye was the Orion Nebula. Okay, now my hand may not be positioned correctly, but I was going with what I was seeing with the Fibonacci spiral and its comparison to the hand or what have you. But if you notice, the Orion Nebula is in the middle of the hand because it is the eye. It is the eye of Kether. And the eye of Kether, when we take a look at the tree of life, it is what creates the planets and the stars and everything else. So we have this starting point in physical reality, and then it moves down the tree. Here it says the following. It says, Sephira Kether, the crown, the summit. And this is Premium Mobile Nebula. And then it says we're at the very apex of the middle pillar, where it can make no further progress on the tree unless it leaves it all together. Kether not only signifies the crown, so it is the very, very top, and it is referred to as the nebula. And by the way, this is the work of William G. Gray. This was done in 1975. William G. Gray is a very famous Kabbalist. Now I'm going to read to you from Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teaching of All Ages. And he talks about this eye also, and Kether, because Kether is referred to, he said the eye of Kether, which we will hear him say in an audio clip I'm going to play for you here in just a second. But it says the Sephirothic tree is sometimes depicted as a human body, thus more definitely establishing the true identity of the first or heavenly man, Adam Kadmon, the idea of the universe. And then he says Kether is the crown of the prototypic head, perhaps refers to the pineal gland. So the pineal gland, which what we see right here, is associated with Kether. Kether is associated with the nebula. Now I'll play what he has to say, Manly Hall, in his lecture from Kabbalah.
There descended a great light or vitality from circumference of a great sphere to its center. In the center it formed the great eye, the eye of Kether, the eye which is the eye of Israel, or the eye of the God of Israel, which neither slumbers nor sleeps, the great open eye that has no lid.
Now the eye that he is referring to, which is the eye of Kether, is the nebula. And the great open eye that has no lid is being referred to because this is what scientists what they argue over is being the black hole. Now, it does not matter whether you believe it is a black hole because you're a mainstream scientist or whether you believe it is a Birkeland current because you believe in the electric universe. It matters not. It is that phenomenon which they are discussing. And this particular eye is thought of, and it was considered a portal. And Kether is related to the nebula, and the eye is related to Kether. So that's how we can put all this together and see that that eye that they're referring to, and what they're actually showing us in this path of souls right here, this is the Ogi, it is the portal. Now, here's what's interesting about the brand new news. Because Stephen Hawking, he just came out with news that says black holes could be portal to another dimension. And you got to remember that I just read to you that the ancient mound builders believed that the Orion Nebula was the Ogi, or a portal to another universe or dimension. He says things can get out of a black hole both from the outside and possibly through another universe. So what we have here is we have once again science confirming what the ancients have been saying. The interesting thing about all of this is that the ancients, supposedly they tell us that the Orion Nebula wasn't visible before 1610, the same year that the Bible was published, or the King James Bible was published. But it was, because we see that it is in the Mayan civilizations, and then we see that it is in these ancient cultures. So this is why I believe there is some kind of a conspiracy related to this as well. You got to remember, when Galileo and these guys went up and they looked at Orion in detail, none of them came back with the idea that there was a nebula or anything. It wasn't until some Jesuit priest came out and decided there was one up there. Now, I have the feeling that they were hiding this information somehow because the Mayans' Popol Vuh was actually found hidden in a Catholic church altar, which is also in another one of my videos as well. So, we have the Orion Nebula as a portal. We have the Orion Nebula as a hand in one culture with an eye in the middle of it. And in another culture, in ancient Egypt, we see it as the eye in the triangle, which represents Osiris. It is an eye on a throne, and that eye on the throne is the eye of Kether. And if you take a look at the trapezium of the Orion Nebula, the trapezium of the Orion Nebula, interestingly enough, has the same angles as the Great Pyramid. I've got it kind of inside here, and these are the same. This is the same geometry that we see on the Great Pyramid, with the 51.85 degrees. So I was able to extract this from symbolism. Now, I also was able to go into the cathedrals and determine that all these various cathedrals were showing us the same thing, because these cathedrals also model the human body. And this was also backed by and shared by the master of the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Timothy Hogan. He shared it on his page because he knew I knew what I was talking about. At the very top, when you take a look at these cathedrals, you have the entrance into the church, and this might be considered the root area or the chakra, or the birthing area, because when you leave the church, according to him, you're being born as Christ, because you're coming out of that birth canal, which is the door of the cathedral. But when you reach the high altar of these cathedrals, and you'll find this also in Karlskirche, Vienna, Austria. You'll find it in the Church of St. Mary in Paris. You'll find it in St. Peter's Basilica. You'll find it in many other churches in Europe. These guys who designed these things, they put the nebula where the pineal gland is located. And what you see right here is the spirit dove. Okay? And so when it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters are the nebula, and spirit is actually the breath causing the waters to move, which actually is begun by mind itself. And we see this in the ancient Hindu texts. So what I'm saying is this is the starting point. It creates the stars, the planets, and everything else. But there is an analogy here. And the analogy is compared to the human body, this area of the Orion Nebula, and that specifically that black hole, Birkeland current, vortex, whatever you want to call that phenomenon, which no one can decide what it is yet, was considered a portal by the ancients. And now we have Stephen Hawking saying that it was considered it's considered possibly a portal into another dimension. So we have science once again confirming what we see with the ancients. So anyways, I thought you would be interested in seeing that, and I'll probably make some kind of a neat, more visual video regarding this, but I wanted to show you that all the stuff that I have been presenting so far, I have done it with symbolism, what I have seen in paintings, what I've seen from the ancients, and so forth, and every single time somebody comes out from the science community and confirms what I've been saying. This came out April 6th. I've been telling you this stuff since 2011. And the guys that are doing the research, like Andrew Collins and people like that, I would highly suggest that if they really want to understand what's going on with this kind of stuff, that they also get some kind of a background or knowledge in Kabbalah. Because if you understand Kabbalah, and if you understand, say, the writings from people like Helena Blavatsky, Manly P. Hall, and these other folks, and then you kind of understand a little bit better about what's going on. So that's really interesting. So the nebula was where they leaped to in the Mounds area, and more than likely that same eye is where they leaped to in ancient Egypt, which where they were trying to become in the area or the kingdom of Osiris, where they were going, their souls were moving up to Orion to be within the kingdom of stars of Osiris, and that is within the nebula or beyond that portal inside the nebula. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you soon.